The air in the cabin is thick with the scent of pine, deceit, and cheap perfume. It's a smell I'll never forget. My husband, Liam, stands frozen in the middle of the living room we built together. His hand, which I've held 1,000 times, is resting on the small of another woman's back. Her name is Amber. I know this because I've spent the last 6 months learning everything about her. She's wearing one of my sweaters. My favorite one, the soft gray cashmere I bought on our anniversary trip to Vermont. It hangs off her small frame, a parody of comfort, a stolen skin. Liam's face is a canvas of shock. His mouth is slightly open, his eyes wide, flickering from me to the 2 uniformed officers standing just behind my shoulders. He looks like a man who has seen a ghost, but I am not a ghost. I am flesh and blood, and a fury so cold it feels like ice water in my veins. He sees the thick vellum paper in my hand. The deed. The original copy, with its crisp folds and the single, elegant signature at the bottom. Mine. The silence stretches, pulled taut like a wire. The only sound is the crackle of the fire in the hearth, a fire he built for her, in our fireplace. The woman, Amber, shrinks under his arm, her painted-on smile dissolving into confusion. She looks at me, then at Liam, then back at me. The question is plain on her face. Who is this woman? Liam can't seem to find the words to answer. He just stares, his carefully constructed world collapsing in on him in real time. One of the officers, a man with a tired face and a kind mustache, clears his throat. The sound is like a gunshot in the quiet room. It breaks the spell. Liam's eyes finally focus, and the shock gives way to a dawning, sputtering rage. But it's too late. He doesn't know it yet, but the war is already over. And he has lost. If you've ever had the ground simply vanish from beneath your feet, leaving you in a free fall with no idea where you'll land, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're finding this story for the first time, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know to share these moments when we finally, against all odds, find our footing again. Our life, before the fire and the lies, was built on a foundation of quiet predictability. I thought it was strength. I thought it was stability. It was, I now realize, just complacency. We met in college, 2 people who fit together like puzzle pieces you'd find in the same section of the box. Not a perfect match, but close enough that you could make it work if you just pushed a little. Liam was ambitious, charming, with a smile that could disarm a boardroom or a skeptical father-in-law. I was the steady one, the planner, the one who remembered birthdays and paid the bills on time and knew how to untangle the knots in his shoelaces and his anxieties. We were a team, or so I thought. We lived in a city apartment that always felt too small, the sounds of traffic and neighbors a constant hum beneath our lives. Liam's career in finance was a demanding beast, and I, a graphic designer working from home, often felt like my world was confined to our 900 square feet. The dream of the cabin was born from that feeling. It was my dream first, a whisper of pine trees and wood smoke and silence. I would scroll through listings late at night, the blue light of my phone illuminating a future I desperately wanted. A place to escape the city's relentless energy. A place to breathe. A place for us to reconnect, away from the pressures of his work and the monotony of our routine. When I first showed him the listing, he was dismissive. A cabin, Clara? When would we have time for that? It's 2 hours away. It's a money pit, he waved his hand, his eyes already back on his work laptop, the glow of spreadsheets reflecting in his glasses. But I persisted. I made a presentation, complete with financial projections and a timeline. I framed it as an investment, a tangible asset, using the language he understood. That got his attention. He looked through my slides, a small, impressed smile playing on his lips. You've really thought this through, he'd said, and for a moment, I felt that old connection, the pride in his eyes that had become so rare. He agreed. We drove up to see the place on a crisp autumn weekend. It was perfect. A small, neglected A-frame tucked away on 5 acres of wooded land, with a creek running along the back of the property. It was musty and dusty, with peeling paint and a roof that looked questionable, but I saw what it could be. I saw us, years from now, sitting on a newly built deck, watching our grandchildren chase fireflies. I saw a life there. Liam saw the work. He saw the cost. But he also saw the look on my face, and in a moment of what I mistook for genuine shared excitement, he said, "Okay, let's do it. Let's build our escape." The next year was one of the happiest of my life. We spent nearly every weekend at the cabin, covered in sawdust and paint. We learned how to lay flooring from YouTube videos. We argued over paint colors and kitchen tiles. We stripped the old wood beams by hand, our muscles aching, our hands raw, but we'd fall into bed at night, exhausted and content, smelling of pine and mineral spirits. It felt like we weren't just renovating a house. We were renovating our marriage. The comfortable silences returned, filled not with distance, but with the shared understanding of a hard day's work. He would hum while he worked on the plumbing, a sound I hadn't heard in years. I would sketch out plans for the garden, and he would look over my shoulder and say, "That's beautiful, Clara. You make everything beautiful." We celebrated our 10th anniversary there, even though it was still a construction site. We sat on plastic lawn chairs in the middle of the unfinished living room, eating pizza from a box and drinking champagne from paper cups. The moonlight streamed through the large, uncurtained windows. "To our sanctuary," he toasted, clinking his cup against mine. "Our place. No one else's." I believed him. I held on to those words like a promise. Our place. The cabin was my project, my baby. I managed the contractors, sourced the materials, and handled the budget. Liam was busy with a big merger at work, so he was happy to let me take the lead. "You've got the eye for it, honey," he'd say. "I trust you." He also suggested something that seemed practical at the time. For tax purposes, for some liability reason, he explained with a flurry of financial jargon I didn't fully understand, it would be smarter to put the property solely in my name. "It's just a piece of paper, Clara. It's our cabin. No matter what the government thinks." It felt strange, but I trusted him. He was the finance guy. He knew best. So I signed the papers, filed them away, and didn't think about it again. The deed, with my name on it, went into our safe deposit box, a forgotten detail in the story of our shared dream. The renovations finished in the spring. It was breathtaking. The dark wood floors gleamed. The new kitchen smelled of fresh paint and possibility. The stone fireplace stood as a proud centerpiece. We spent our first official night there, sleeping in a real bed, under a real roof we had helped build. I remember waking up to the sound of birds instead of sirens, the morning light filtering through the pine trees. I looked over at Liam, sleeping beside me, and my heart felt so full it ached. I thought, this is it. This is the start of our next chapter. We made it. But a foundation, no matter how carefully built, can crack from within. The merger at Liam's firm went through, and he was promoted. The long hours became longer. The late nights became more frequent. The man who had hummed while fixing a leaky faucet was replaced by a man who came home tense and silent, smelling of stale office air, and something else I couldn't quite place. He'd collapse on the sofa, scrolling through his phone, a wall of blue light between us. "How was your day?" I'd ask.
"Fine."
"Tiring," he'd grunt, not looking up. Our weekends at the cabin became less frequent. "I'm just swamped, Clara. I can't get away," he'd say. "You should go. Enjoy it." So I would. I'd drive up alone, the 2-hour journey feeling longer and lonelier each time. I'd sit on the deck we built together, drinking my morning coffee and watching the deer in the woods, and the silence I had once craved now felt cavernous. The cabin, our sanctuary, started to feel like my gilded cage. I was living our dream for the both of us, and the weight of it was crushing. The inciting incident, the first hairline crack that would eventually shatter everything, was a dry cleaning receipt. It fell out of his suit jacket pocket as I was gathering laundry. It was from a place near his office, which was normal, but the items listed were not. A silk blouse, size small. A floral dress. Things I had never owned. I stood there in our laundry room, the flimsy piece of paper trembling in my hand. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A gift for his sister? A mix-up at the cleaners? But my gut, that primal, instinctual part of me that I had learned to ignore, was screaming. I confronted him that night, my voice shaking as I held up the receipt. "Liam, what is this?" He barely glanced at it. He was a master of deflection, of making me feel small and foolish. "It's a receipt, Clara. What's the big deal?" I picked up some things for a colleague. She had a client dinner and spilled wine on her dress. I was just being helpful, he said it so smoothly, with such casual annoyance, that for a moment, I almost believed him. He made me feel like the crazy one, the suspicious wife invading his privacy. "A colleague," I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, a colleague. Her name is Amber. She's new on the team." "Jesus, Clara, are we really going to do this? After the day I've had?" He sighed, a performance of pure exhaustion, and ran a hand through his hair. He looked at me with disappointment, as if I were a child who had just broken a precious vase. "I thought you trusted me." Those words were a weapon, and he wielded them perfectly. They hit their mark, filling me with shame and doubt. I apologized. I let it go. I put the receipt and my suspicions away. But the crack was there, and it started to spread. The late nights continued. The hushed phone calls started. He'd take them in the other room, or step out onto the balcony, his back to me. When I asked who it was, the answer was always the same. Work. His phone, which used to lie casually on the coffee table, was now always in his pocket, or face down beside him. He set a new passcode, claiming it was for security reasons, a new company policy. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home, in my own marriage. We were living parallel lives under the same roof. I tried to bridge the gap. I'd cook his favorite meals, suggest date nights, try to initiate the intimacy we'd lost. He'd agree, but he was never really there. His mind was always somewhere else. His eyes would glaze over while I was talking. He was a polite, distant stranger. My early struggles were a pathetic dance of denial and desperation. I wanted to believe the man I married, the man I had built a life and a cabin with, was still in there somewhere. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the stress of his new job was the real culprit. I tried to be more understanding, more supportive. I'd leave him notes in his briefcase, send him encouraging texts. They were rarely answered. The loneliness was a physical ache. I'd wander through our apartment, touching the objects that defined our life together. The photos on the mantelpiece, the worn armchair where he used to read, the coffee mug I'd bought him that said, "World's Best Husband." It all felt like a museum exhibit of a life that was already over. One Friday, he told me he needed to go to the cabin. Alone. "There's a weird noise in the plumbing, and I want to check out that loose gutter before it gets worse." "It's just guy stuff, Clara. You'd be bored." I was hurt. "I can help. I know the plumbing almost as well as you do." "No," he said, his tone sharp, final. "I just need some space. To think. This merger has been brutal. I just need a weekend to myself. To clear my head." I watched him pack his bag. He threw in jeans and old sweatshirts, the clothes he always wore for working on the house. But then, tucked underneath, I saw a new bottle of expensive cologne. The kind I'd never smelled on him before. And he packed the good whiskey, the bottle we were saving for special occasion. My heart sank. He was going to our sanctuary, but he wasn't going to fix a gutter. That weekend was the longest of my life. I called him on Saturday evening. He didn't pick up. I texted. No reply for hours. Finally, a short message buzzed on my phone. "Sorry, bad reception up here. Everything's fine. Talk tomorrow." Bad reception. It was a lie. We'd had a cell signal booster installed months ago. I knew it worked perfectly. I had stood on the deck and had a 2-hour video call with my sister just weeks before. The lie was so lazy, so careless. It was then that I knew. I didn't just suspect. I knew. I felt the floor drop out from under me, the cold, dizzying sensation of free fall. The man I loved was with another woman, in in our bed, in our house, in the life we had built with our own 2 hands. My sadness, a heavy, suffocating blanket, began to smolder at the edges, turning into a slow-burning anger. I spent that Sunday not crying, but thinking. I went from being a victim of his betrayal to being a detective in my own life. The time for denial was over. It was time for evidence. The rising challenges came in waves, each one threatening to drown me. I started my quiet investigation, a grim, methodical process that felt like an autopsy of my own marriage. I became a creature of the night, waiting until Liam was asleep before I'd slip out of bed and go to his home office. His laptop was password protected, but after years of watching his fingers move across the keyboard, I knew his habits. I tried his old passwords first.
No luck.
Then I tried variations. His birthday. My birthday. Our anniversary. Nothing. I felt a surge of frustration, then a cold flash of insight. I typed in her name, Amber, and then her birthday, which I found with a quick search on her public social media profile. The screen unlocked. I felt a wave of nausea, so intense I had to grip the desk to keep from falling. It wasn't just that I was right. It was the sheer audacity of it. He hadn't even tried to be clever. It was a testament to his arrogance, to how little he thought of me, of my intelligence. He assumed I would never look, or maybe he just didn't care if I did. The digital world he had hidden from me opened up, and it was a cesspool. Emails, not just to her, but about her, to his friends, bragging, laughing, describing her in ways he hadn't described me in a decade. There were folders of photos. Her, smiling in restaurants I recognized. Her, drinking wine on the patio of a hotel we had stayed at for our anniversary 2 years ago. And then, the one that broke me. A picture of her on the deck of our cabin. She was wearing my yellow sundress, the one I had left in the closet there. She was holding a mug of coffee, smiling at the person behind the camera, my husband. The background was our view, the creek, the pine trees. She was living my life. She had stolen my dream. I spent hours scrolling, my heart pounding, a cold sweat on my skin. I took pictures of everything with my phone, documenting the evidence. Bank statements were the next stop. I had access to all our joint accounts. I started cross-referencing the dates from the photos with our credit card bills, the expensive dinners, the hotel stays, jewelry, a spa weekend in a town just 30 minutes from the cabin. He was funding this entire affair with our money. My money. I had contributed my freelance income to our joint savings, the same savings he was now using to buy flowers and lingerie for his mistress. The betrayal was no longer just emotional. It was financial. It was a systematic plundering of our shared future. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was robbing me. He was dismantling our life, brick by brick, and selling the parts to build a new one with her. The challenge wasn't just gathering the proof, it was living the lie. I had to go on as if nothing had changed. I had to sit across the dinner table from him, listening to him complain about his day at work, knowing he had spent his lunch hour buying a gift for another woman. I had to smile and nod, my stomach in knots, my mind racing. Every touch felt like a violation. Every "I love you" he uttered out of habit felt like acid on my skin. I was an actress in a tragedy of my own life, and the performance was draining me of everything I had. I lost weight. I stopped sleeping. Dark circles formed under my eyes. When Liam noticed, he feigned concern. "You don't look well, Clara. Are you feeling okay? Maybe you should see a doctor." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was the disease, and he was prescribing a doctor. The cabin became the focal point of my obsession and my pain. He started going up more frequently, always alone, always with the same excuses. "The deck needs restaining. I think there's a leak in the guest bathroom." He would talk about it as my cabin, now a subtle but significant shift in language. "I'm heading up to my cabin for the weekend." It was a deliberate act of possession, of pushing me out of the dream we had built together. I would track his location through the phone app we'd installed for safety years ago, the one he had probably forgotten about. I'd watch the little blue that represented my husband travel up the highway, settle over the precise location of our property, and stay there for the weekend. And I knew he wasn't alone. I imagined them together, living in the space I had designed, sleeping in the bed I had chosen, using the dishes I had bought. The anger inside me burned hotter, clearer. It was becoming a shield. The midpoint shift, the moment the ground beneath me solidified and I found my footing, came from an unexpected place, a dusty filing cabinet in our basement storage unit. I was looking for old tax documents, something my accountant had requested, when I found the folder labeled Cabin. Inside were all the receipts, the contractor invoices, the blueprints. And at the very bottom, in a stiff vellum envelope, was the original deed. I pulled it out, my hands trembling slightly. I hadn't looked at it since the day I signed it. My eyes scanned the dense legal text until they landed on the section detailing ownership. And there it was in black and white, legally binding and irrefutable. Sole owner. Clara Maeve Thompson, not Clara and Liam Thompson. Just me. I sank down onto a dusty box, the single piece of paper feeling impossibly heavy in my hands. I remembered his words from years ago, his casual explanation about tax benefits and liability. He had done it to protect his own assets, to shield the property from any potential business debts. In his arrogance, in his financial cunning, he had inadvertently handed me the one weapon I needed. He had built his own cage and handed me the key. He had forgotten this one crucial detail. In his mind, the cabin was his because he was the primary earner, the one with the real job. He saw it as his possession, an extension of his success. He had completely forgotten the legal reality. A slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was cold, sharp, and full of purpose. The tears stopped. The despair receded. The fog of grief that had clouded my mind for months finally lifted, replaced by a crystalline clarity. My goal was no longer to survive. It was to win. He had started a war, but he had armed his enemy. He thought he was the king, moving his pieces around the board. He had no idea I was about to flip the whole table over. That night, I slept. For the first time in months, I slept a deep, dreamless sleep. I woke up the next morning a different woman. The sad, broken wife was gone. In her place was a strategist, a general planning her campaign. I made copies of the deed. I organized all the financial evidence I had gathered, the credit card statements highlighted in yellow, the photos of receipts, the screenshots of emails, into a neat, damning portfolio. I made an appointment with the best divorce lawyer in the city. The deepening crisis arrived right on schedule, as if Liam could sense the shift in the atmosphere. My newfound calm seemed to unnerve him. He was used to my anxiety, my sad attempts to please him. My quiet confidence was something he couldn't read, and it made him aggressive. He decided to make his move. He sat me down one evening in the living room, the television muted, the air tense. He couldn't even look me in the eye. He stared at a spot on the wall just over my shoulder. "Clara, this isn't working," he began, the classic, cowardly opening line. "I haven't been happy for a long time. I think we need to separate." I said nothing. I just watched him, my expression unreadable. My silence unnerved him further. He had expected tears, begging a scene.
He was prepared for that.
He wasn't prepared for this calm, observant stillness. He plowed on, his voice gaining a cruel edge. "I've met someone.
It just happened."
I didn't plan it, another lie. I had the receipts to prove how meticulously he had planned it. "I'm in love with her." "I'm sorry, but it's the truth." "I see," I said, my voice even. My lack of reaction finally made him angry. He needed me to be the hysterical, emotional wreck to justify his actions, to paint himself as the victim of a broken marriage. "Is that all you can say?" "I see. Don't you have anything to say for yourself?" "What would you like me to say, Liam?" "I don't know," he shouted, finally standing up and pacing the room. "Something. Anything. God, this is what I'm talking about. This coldness. This is why we fell apart." He was rewriting history in real time, painting me as the villain. It was a masterful piece of gaslighting, and the old me would have crumbled, would have absorbed the blame, would have apologized for my own heartbreak. But the new me just sat there, watching the performance, taking mental notes. Then he delivered what he thought would be the final, crushing blow. I'll be moving out. I'm going to stay at the cabin for a while, to get my head straight. Amber will be with me. I want you to pack my things, he paused, letting the cruelty of it sink in. And my lawyer will be in touch about the apartment. Obviously, I'll be keeping the cabin. It was my investment, my project. You can have the apartment once we figure out the equity. I'm trying to be fair here, Clara.
Fair.
The word hung in the air, so obscene it was almost funny. He stood there, puffed up with his own perceived magnanimity, a king dividing his spoils, graciously leaving me the scraps. He truly believed he held all the power, all the cards. He thought he was leaving me broken and defeated in our city apartment while he went to start his new life in the sanctuary I had built. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. I just nodded slowly. Okay, Liam. I understand. My compliance sealed his victory in his mind. He looked relieved. The fight he had geared himself up for hadn't happened. He had won. Easily. He left the next morning, his bags packed, a smug, pitying look on his face as he said goodbye. Take care of yourself, Clara, he said, as if he were leaving a sick relative behind. The moment the door closed behind him, I went to work. The feeling of being at my lowest point, of having him throw his affair in my face and steal our dream, wasn't a crushing weight anymore. It was fuel. It was the final push I needed. My isolation was no longer a weakness. It was a strategic advantage. He had no idea what was coming. He was driving toward his new life, feeling triumphant, while I was dialing my lawyer, setting the final pieces in motion. My turning point was a phone call. I sat in my lawyer's office, a sleek, impersonal space that smelled of leather and money. Her name was Eleanor Vance, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. I laid out my portfolio of evidence on her polished mahogany desk. The deed, the financial records, the photos. She examined everything in silence, her expression grim. When she was done, she looked up at me, a flicker of something, respect, maybe in her eyes. Well, Mrs. Thompson, she said, her voice crisp. Your husband is a fool. A brazen, arrogant fool. She explained the legal ramifications. The cabin was mine.
Period.
It was a non-marital asset, purchased with my inheritance money as a down payment, a fact Liam had conveniently forgotten, and legally titled in my name alone. He had no claim to it. None. The financial infidelity was just as damning. She explained that she could file an immediate motion to freeze our joint assets based on the evidence of him squandering marital funds on his affair. He thinks he's left you with the apartment, Eleanor said, a thin, predatory smile on her face. But by the time we're done, he'll be lucky if he can afford the rent on a studio. We planned the strategy. It would be a two-pronged attack. First, reclaim my property. Second, cut off his access to funds. Eleanor advised me to act quickly, before he had a chance to move more money or establish residency in the cabin. He's there now? With the woman? She asked.
Yes.
He left this morning. Good, she said. Here's what you're going to do. The plan was simple, direct, and utterly terrifying. I wasn't going to serve him papers from a distance. I was going to deliver the message myself. Eleanor explained the procedure for a civil standby. I could request that the local sheriff's department accompany me to my property to ensure the peaceful removal of an unwanted person. It was my right as the sole legal owner. Are you sure you're up for this, Clara? Eleanor asked, her sharp gaze softening for a moment. A face-to-face confrontation can be difficult. I thought of him in my cabin with her. I thought of the years of lies, the stolen money, the casual cruelty of his departure. The fear was there, a cold knot in my stomach. But beneath it, the anger was a bedrock. I'm sure, I said, my voice steady. He built that life on my back. I'm going to be there to watch it fall. I left her office with a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer a victim reacting to his moves. I was an agent of my own fate. I drove home, made the call to the sheriff's department in the county where the cabin was located. I explained the situation calmly and professionally, just as Eleanor had instructed. I emailed them a copy of the deed and my driver's license. They were polite, efficient. They agreed to meet me at the turnoff to the property at 4 p.m. the next day. The following 24 hours were a blur of nervous energy. I packed a small overnight bag. I put the original deed in my purse. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a movie of my own life. The woman driving up the highway, the scenery blurring past, was me but also not me. She was calmer, colder, more determined than I had ever been. I met the two officers at the designated spot. One was the older man with the kind mustache, Officer Davies. The other was younger, more stoic, Officer Riley. I showed them my ID and the original deed. Officer Davies looked it over carefully. "All right, ma'am," he said, handing it back to me. "So, to be clear, you are the sole owner of this property. The individual currently there, your husband, has no legal right to be there if you ask him to leave." "That's correct," I said. "And you are asking him to leave?"
Yes.
"I am." "Okay. We'll follow you in. We're just here to keep the peace. This is a civil matter. We can't force him, but we can inform him that if he refuses to leave your property, he will be trespassing." "I understand." I got back in my car, my heart hammering against my ribs. I led the way down the long, gravel driveway, the crunch of the tires the only sound. The woods were thick on either side. My woods. And then the cabin came into view, nestled in the clearing. Our dream. My dream. There was smoke curling from the chimney. His car was parked out front, and next to it, a smaller, unfamiliar red sedan.
Hers.
I pulled up, put the car in park, and took one deep, shuddering breath. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back was pale, her eyes large and dark, but her jaw was set. She was ready. I got out of the car, the deed in my hand, and walked toward the front door, the two officers falling into step behind me. And then I opened the door to my house. We are back where we started. The living room, the fire, the cheap perfume, the man I married, frozen in time, his world tilting on its axis. The woman wearing my sweater, the deed in my hand. The silence finally breaks. It is Liam who shatters it, his voice a ragged tear in the quiet fabric of the room. "Clara? What the hell is this? What are you doing here?" He takes a step forward, his shock curdling into rage. He gestures wildly at the officers. "Why are they here? Did you call the cops on me? In my own house. My own house." The words hang in the air, a monument to his delusion. I don't raise my voice. I don't have to. "It's not your house, Liam." My voice is calm, level, a frozen lake. "It's my house." I hold up the deed. I don't even have to step closer. He knows what it is. I can see the flicker of a long-forgotten memory in his eyes, the memory of him explaining away the signature, the legal jargon, the detail he had dismissed as irrelevant, the detail that has just become his undoing. What is that?" he stammers, but his face tells me he knows. "It's the deed, Liam," I say. "The one you were so clever about putting solely in my name for tax purposes, the one that says this property, this land, this house belongs to me. And only me." The color drains from his face. He looks from the paper in my hand to my eyes, searching for a bluff, a trick. He finds none. He finds only cold, hard truth. The woman, Amber, finally untangles herself from his side. "Liam, what is she talking about? Who is this?" she asks, her voice high and reedy. Liam ignores her. His focus is entirely on me. "You can't be serious," he hisses. "We bought this place together. We built it together." "We did, I agree. But you put it in my name. And now, I'm asking you to leave my property." Officer Davies steps forward slightly. His presence is a calm, immovable force. "Sir," he says, his voice polite but firm, "this is a civil matter. But the lady has presented a legal deed showing sole ownership. She is asking you and your guest to vacate the premises. If you refuse, you will be trespassing." Trespassing. The word hits Liam like a physical blow. He looks around the room at the stone fireplace he helped build, the wood floors he helped lay, as if seeing it all for the first time as a place where he does not belong. His arrogance, the bedrock of his personality, begins to crumble, revealing the panicked, entitled man underneath. "This is insane," he sputters, turning to the officers. "She can't just kick me out. I'm her husband." "That's a matter for divorce court, sir," Officer Davies says patiently. "Our concern right now is the ownership of this property. And according to this document, it belongs to her." Amber is now staring at Liam, her face a mask of dawning horror and humiliation. "Husband? You told me you were divorced. You told me this was your house." Liam shoots her a venomous look. "Shut up, Amber." He turns back to me, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. "You will regret this, Clara. You have no idea what you've just done." And that's when I deliver the final, crushing blow. The plot twist he never saw coming. This isn't just about the cabin. It was never just about the cabin. "Oh, I think I do, Liam," I say, my voice still quiet, but now laced with a sharp edge of steel. "See, this is just the beginning. While you were here, playing house with my money and my property, I was busy." I take a step into the room. I feel the power shift, a tangible transfer of energy. I am no longer the intruder.
He is.
My lawyer, Eleanor Vance, you might have heard of her, she's very good, filed an emergency motion this morning. Based on the mountain of evidence I have of you systematically draining our marital assets to fund your hobby, I say, glancing at Amber. A judge has granted a temporary freeze on all our joint accounts. Your corporate card has been canceled. The funds in your personal account, the one you thought I didn't know about, have been frozen as well, pending a forensic accounting of your spending for the last year. Liam's face goes from white to a mottled, ugly red. He looks like he's been struck by lightning. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He thought he was the financial genius, the master of the universe. He had no idea I had been tracking his every move, every dollar. He thought he was leaving me with an apartment to haggle over. He didn't realize I was leaving him with nothing but the clothes on his back and a massive legal bill. "So you see, Liam," I continue, the words coming easily now, a clean, surgical strike. "You're not just trespassing in my house. You're broke. The car you drove here? The lease is in both our names, so I'd appreciate it if you left the keys. You can call a cab. Or maybe Amber can give you a ride." Amber lets out a small, strangled sob. She looks at Liam, at the man who had sold her a fantasy of a rich, divorced bachelor with a beautiful cabin in the woods, and sees him for what he is, a liar, a cheat, and, as of 5 minutes ago, a man with no money and no home. She backs away from him, grabbing her purse from the counter. I have to go," she mutters, and without another look at either of us, she practically flees, running out the door and to her little red car. The sound of her engine starting and the gravel spitting from her tires is the closing punctuation on their sordid little story. Liam is left standing alone in the middle of my living room. He looks utterly defeated, a king without a kingdom. The rage has evaporated, replaced by a hollow, gaping disbelief. He finally looks at me, and for the first time, I think he truly sees me. Not as his quiet, compliant wife. Not as an obstacle or a nuisance. He sees the woman who outmaneuvered him, who used his own arrogance and his own tactics against him, and who beat him at his own game. "How?" he whispers, the single word full of 1,000 questions. "How did you know? How did you do this? How did you become this person?" "You taught me, Liam," I say, and it's the truest thing I've said all day. "You taught me how to be ruthless." Officer Davies clears his throat again, a gentle reminder of why they're here. "Sir, I think it's time to go." Liam moves like a man in a trance. He walks to the coat rack by the door, grabs his jacket. He fumbles in his pocket for his car keys, then seems to remember what I said. He places them on the small entry table with a clatter that echoes in the silent room. He doesn't look at me again. He just walks out the door, a trespasser on the life he thought he owned. I watch him walk down the long driveway, his shoulders slumped, a man with nowhere to go. The officers give me a respectful nod and follow him out, ensuring he leaves the property line. And then I am alone. The aftermath is silence. A profound, echoing silence that is both a relief and a burden. The front door is still slightly ajar, letting in a sliver of cold evening air. I walk over and shut it, the click of the latch sounding like a final, definitive period on a long and painful chapter of my life. I stand in the middle of the living room, and I breathe. The air no longer smells of her perfume, only of pine and wood smoke and the lingering ghost of my victory. It's not a sweet victory. It's bitter, sharp, like dark chocolate. There is satisfaction, a cold, clean feeling of justice served.
But there is no joy.
The man I loved or the man I thought I loved is gone. The life we built together is a pile of rubble at my feet. I won the war, but the battlefield is my own heart, and it is scarred. I walk through the house, my house, touching things. The smooth, cool granite of the kitchen countertop. The soft wool of the throw blanket on the armchair. I go upstairs to the bedroom. Our bedroom. My bedroom. The bed is unmade, the sheets rumpled from where they had been sleeping. The sight of it, the intimacy of their betrayal laid bare, sends a fresh wave of pain through me. But it's different now. It's not the helpless, crushing pain of a victim. It's the clean, sharp pain of a wound that is finally being allowed to heal. I strip the bed, balling up the sheets and the duvet. I carry them downstairs, my arms full of the evidence of their sin. I take them outside to the metal fire pit on the stone patio. I add the gray cashmere sweater she left behind on the floor. I find a bottle of lighter fluid in the shed. I douse the pile, and I light a match. The flames catch quickly, a whoosh of orange and heat against the twilight sky. I watch the fabric burn. I watch the memories they tried to make here turn to ash and smoke. I am not burning my past with Liam, not the good parts. I am burning his betrayal. I am cleansing this space. I am reclaiming it. I stay out there until the fire dies down to glowing embers, the smoke rising into the starry sky. The cold night air feels good on my face. I feel empty, but it's not a bad emptiness. It's a clean slate, a space waiting to be filled with something new, something of my own. I go back inside and make a fire in the hearth, a real fire for me. I pour myself a glass of the good whiskey he brought for her. I sit in the armchair facing the flames, and I sip it slowly. The house is quiet. The woods are quiet. For the first time in a very long time, my mind is quiet. I don't know what my future holds. I know there will be a messy divorce. There will be lawyers and paperwork and the tedious, painful process of legally untangling two lives. But I am not afraid. The woman who is afraid, the woman who cried over a dry-cleaning receipt, is gone. I burned her with the sheets. The woman who is left is stronger. She is a survivor. She is the sole owner of her life. This cabin was supposed to be our sanctuary, our escape, and in the end it is. It's my escape from a life that was a lie, from a man who didn't deserve me, from the person I used to be. I look around at the beautiful, quiet space I built, and I know, with a certainty that settles deep in my bones, that I am going to be okay. I am home. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version, your story of finding strength when you thought all was lost. Thanks for being here with me tonight. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories of resilience to life.